What if I told you that right now, inside your own muscles, your nerves, even the way your heart beats, there's a mineral running over 300 different biological processes, and research suggests a surprising number of people may not be getting enough of it through diet alone? Most people have no idea that a large share of adults may be falling short on this one mineral, and standard blood tests don't always give a complete picture of how much your body actually has in reserve. A normal-looking lab result doesn't necessarily tell the whole story. Today you're going to discover 15 plants that can help you get more of this essential mineral, naturally, straight from food. Some of them you already have in your kitchen right now. One of them was sacred enough that an entire ancient empire used it in religious ceremonies. And stick around, because near the end, I'm going to tell you about a superfood a lot of people prepare in a way that may significantly reduce how much of its benefit they actually get. This is the story of magnesium, the mineral your body has been quietly begging for. So here's the problem. Magnesium isn't some niche optional nutrient. It's a cofactor, meaning it's required for somewhere between 300 and 600 different enzyme systems in your body. It's involved in how your cells make energy, how your DNA gets copied, how your muscles contract and then actually let go again, how your heart keeps a steady rhythm. And yet, depending on the age group you look at, anywhere from 45% up to over 80% of people aren't getting enough of it. Here's where it gets sneaky though. You'd think this would be obvious, that you'd feel it, or your doctor would catch it on a blood test. But less than 1% of your body's total magnesium is actually floating around in your bloodstream. The other 99% is locked away inside your bones and your tissues. So your body can draw on those internal reserves just to keep your blood levels looking normal for a while, which means a standard lab test isn't always the full picture. Think about that for a moment. Some people may have lower magnesium intake than they realize, simply because the usual way of checking for it isn't built to catch it early. So why is this happening to so many people? Mainly because of how our food has changed. Refining wheat into white flour strips out roughly 80 to 85% of its natural magnesium. Polishing rice the same way wipes out about 83%. And refining sugarcane down to white sugar removes essentially all of it, over 99%. Multiply that across an entire modern diet built around processed grains and sugar, and it's not hard to see how intake adds up to less than what our bodies are designed to run on. But here's the hope in all of this, and this is really the whole point of today's video. You don't need a synthetic supplement to close that gap. Nature already solved this problem a long time ago, in some pretty unexpected places. Some of them are tiny seeds. Some are leafy greens you've probably pushed to the side of your plate. One of them is a grain so old it was practically worshipped. Let's start at the very top of the list, because the first plant we're covering isn't just rich in magnesium. Gram for gram, it might be the single most concentrated source on this entire list. 1. Hemp seeds, the complete seed. You've probably seen hemp hearts sitting in the health food aisle, maybe sprinkled on someone's yogurt at a cafe, and scrolled right past them without a second thought. But here's what most people miss. These small, soft seeds are sitting at the very top of the magnesium chart. Just 3 tablespoons, about 30 grams, delivers 210 milligrams of magnesium. That's half of your entire daily target, from a couple of spoonfuls. And this is where things get interesting. Hemp seeds aren't just a magnesium source. They contain an amino acid called arginine, which your body converts into nitric oxide, a compound that helps your blood vessels relax and open up. So while the magnesium is supporting your muscles and nerves, the arginine is working on your blood pressure at the very same time. In American kitchens, you'll find these blended into morning smoothies, baked into oatmeal bars, or just scattered over yogurt for a bit of crunch. And unlike a lot of seeds on this list, hemp hearts don't carry much of the anti-nutrient baggage. They have a relatively low phytic acid content, which means your body doesn't have to fight as hard to actually absorb that magnesium. There's also something almost poetic about these seeds. They're classified as a complete protein, containing all 9 essential amino acids your body can't make on its own. This is not just a seed. This is one of the most efficient magnesium delivery systems in the entire plant kingdom. 2. Pumpkin seeds. The ancient harvest. Most people overlook pumpkin seeds entirely. Maybe you pull them out of a pumpkin around Halloween, roast a handful, and never think about them again for the rest of the year. But here's what most people miss. These seeds carry 550 milligrams of magnesium per 100 grams, and a single 1-ounce handful gives you 156 milligrams, more than a third of what you need in a day. And here's where the story gets old. Really old. Archaeological evidence shows pumpkin seeds were already being cultivated in the Americas as far back as 7000 BCE. Indigenous communities valued them not just as food, but as medicine, for thousands of years before superfood was even a phrase. Now, here's the catch most people don't know about. Raw pumpkin seeds come loaded with phytic acid, a compound that binds to magnesium and blocks your body from absorbing it properly. But there's a simple fix passed down through generations of traditional food preparation: soaking or sprouting the seeds. That one step can meaningfully improve how much of that magnesium becomes available for your body to use. Today, you'll find them dry roasted as a snack, scattered over salads for crunch, or baked right into multigrain bread. This is not just a seed. This is a 7,000-year-old survival food, hiding in plain sight in your supermarket's bulk bins. But surprisingly, this isn't even the oldest food on today's list. There's a seed coming up shortly that's been wrapped up in human ritual for centuries, in a way you'd never expect. 3. Cacao powder, the food of the gods. We take chocolate for granted. It's a treat, a dessert, something you reach for on a bad day, not exactly something you'd think of as a mineral powerhouse. But here's what most people miss. Raw cacao powder contains 500 milligrams of magnesium per 100 grams. Just 3 tablespoons gives you 160 milligrams, almost 40% of your daily target, wrapped inside something that tastes like dessert. And this is where things get interesting. Cacao isn't just delivering magnesium, it's loaded with flavonoid antioxidants, specifically catechins and proanthocyanidins, compounds tied to cardiovascular relaxation and mood regulation. It also contains theobromine, a gentle stimulant that gives you smooth, sustained energy without the jittery crash that caffeine can cause. Here's a small but important detail though. Cacao contains oxalic acid, which can bind to magnesium in your gut. Some research suggests pairing it with high-calcium dairy may modestly affect how much of that magnesium your body actually absorbs, since calcium and oxalates can interact in the digestive tract. People blend it into smoothies, stir it into warm cacao drinks, or mix it into chia puddings, and in every case, it's quietly delivering a mineral most people are missing, disguised as a comfort food. This is not just a treat. This is one of the oldest functional foods in human history, dressed up as dessert. But surprisingly, cacao isn't the most unusual item on this list. The seed coming up next helped entire communities survive droughts that wiped out other crops. 4. Sesame seeds, the survivor's seed. You've probably eaten sesame seeds dozens of times without ever thinking about them. A sprinkle on a stir-fry, a swirl of tahini in your hummus. They're more of a background flavor than a focal point. But here's what most people miss. Sesame seeds contain 351 milligrams of magnesium per 100 grams. A single tablespoon only gives you about 32 milligrams, so this one works best as a steady contributor rather than a single big hit. And this is where it gets interesting. Sesame seeds also carry lignans, specifically sesamine and sesamoline, compounds that work alongside the magnesium to support healthy cholesterol levels and blood vessel function. It's not just one mineral working alone, it's a small team of compounds working together. There's a catch here too, though. The outer coating of unhulled sesame seeds is rich in calcium and oxalates, which can interfere with magnesium absorption. But there's an easy traditional fix: lightly toasting the seeds or grinding them down into smooth tahini meaningfully improves how much magnesium and zinc your body can actually use. Historically, sesame is one of the oldest cultivated oilseed crops on Earth, prized for thousands of years, specifically because it could survive drought conditions that wiped out other crops. This is not just a garnish. This is a seed that's been quietly feeding civilizations through famine for thousands of years. 5. Chia seeds, the hydration seed. If you've spent any time on social media in the last decade, you've seen chia pudding, tiny seeds suspended in a thick, gel-like liquid, looking almost like tapioca. But here's what most people miss. Those seeds carry 335 milligrams of magnesium per 100 grams, and a 1-ounce serving gives you over 95 milligrams, more than a fifth of your daily need. And here's where things get interesting. Chia seeds can absorb up to 12 times their own weight in water. When they hit liquid, they form this thick, mucilaginous gel almost instantly. That gel slows down how fast carbohydrates and sugar get absorbed into your bloodstream, which is great for blood sugar stability. But, and this is the part most health content skips, that same gel that makes chia seeds so beneficial for digestion can also slightly slow down how quickly your body absorbs the magnesium itself, because the mineral gets physically trapped inside that gel matrix alongside everything else. Even so, people use them constantly, stirred into overnight oats, set into cold puddings, even used as an egg replacement in vegan baking. This is not just a seed. This is a tiny capsule of hydration, fiber, and mineral support, all working together in a single spoonful. If you're starting to notice a pattern here, small seeds, packed with disproportionate amounts of a mineral most people are missing, you're exactly right. And we've only just gotten started. 6. Brazil nuts, the rainforest guardian. You've probably grabbed a handful of mixed nuts at some point and picked out the big, oval-shaped ones first. Brazil nuts tend to stand out in any trail mix. But here's what most people miss. These nuts deliver 376 milligrams of magnesium per 100 grams, and a handful of about 6 kernels gives you 107 milligrams, a quarter of your daily need. And this is where things get interesting. Brazil nuts are also one of the richest known sources of selenium, a mineral your thyroid needs to produce hormones and defend your cells against oxidative damage. A single kernel can contain close to 96 micrograms of selenium. Here's the catch though, and it's an important one. Because selenium is so concentrated in these nuts, you actually want to limit yourself to just 1 or 2 a day. Eating handfuls regularly can push you towards selenium toxicity. So unlike most foods on this list, the goal here isn't eat more, it's eat just enough. And here's something most people never learn. Brazil nut trees grow almost exclusively in untouched parts of the Amazon rainforest. They depend on specific native orchid bees to pollinate their flowers, and on small rodents called agoutis, one of the only animals strong enough to crack the nut's outer shell to actually disperse their seeds. This tree, in a very real sense, cannot survive without an intact rainforest ecosystem around it. This is not just a nut, it's a living connection between your kitchen and one of the most complex, fragile ecosystems on Earth, one that depends on a single species of bee and a single species of rodent just to keep growing. 7. Cashews, the hidden apple seed. Cashews show up everywhere, roasted and salted as a snack, blended into vegan cheese, used as a base for creamy plant-based sauces. But here's what most people miss. What you're actually eating is the seed of a fruit. The cashew nut grows attached to something called a cashew apple, a fruit prized in tropical regions for its juice. In terms of magnesium, cashews provide 292 milligrams per 100 grams, with a 1-ounce serving giving you 74 milligrams, about 18% of your daily target, alongside heart-healthy monounsaturated fats and copper, which supports both energy production and bone health. And here's where it gets interesting again. Cashews do contain phytic acid, which limits absorption somewhat, but roasting them does double duty. It partially breaks down those phytate compounds, and it makes the remaining magnesium more soluble and easier for your body to actually use. This is not just a snack nut. This is the seed of a tropical fruit, quietly providing minerals most people assume only come from supplements. 8. Almonds, the pollinator's reward. Almonds are probably the most familiar nut on this entire list. Almond milk, almond butter, almond flour, almonds straight out of the bag. But here's what most people miss. Beyond the familiar 270 milligrams of magnesium per 100 grams, and the 80 milligrams you'd get from a single ounce, almonds are also rich in vitamin E, which protects your cell membranes from oxidative damage at the very same time the magnesium is supporting your nervous system. Here's a detail most people get wrong though. Almond skins, the thin brown layer most people eat without thinking twice, contain both tannins and phytic acid, two compounds that meaningfully block magnesium absorption. Soaking raw almonds overnight, or simply choosing blanched skins-off almonds, makes a real difference in how much of that magnesium your body actually gets to keep. And this is where things get genuinely surprising. California alone produces approximately 80% of the entire world's commercial almond supply. Every single spring, an enormous, highly coordinated pollination effort brings honeybee colonies in from across the entire country just to pollinate those orchards in time. This is not just a nut. This is the result of one of the largest agricultural pollination operations on the planet, happening every year, just so this one mineral-rich seed can end up in your kitchen. And if you think that's impressive, wait until you hear about the grain that nearly disappeared from history altogether. If you're starting to notice a pattern here, you're not imagining it. Seeds, nuts, small, dense, often overlooked foods, every single one of them quietly carrying a mineral that most modern diets are simply missing. But here's the thing, we're only halfway through this list, and honestly, some of the most surprising entries are still ahead. There's an ancient grain that was once sculpted into religious figures using honey and human blood. There's a superfood that most people eat completely wrong in a way that blocks almost all of its benefit. And there's a leafy green where the part people usually throw away is actually more nutritious than the part they keep. If this is the kind of thing that fascinates you, the hidden science behind ordinary food, do me a favor and hit that like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe. It genuinely helps this channel keep making videos like this. Alright, let's keep going, because the next category takes us from the seed aisle all the way back to an ancient empire. 9. Amaranth, the forbidden grain. Most people have never even heard of amaranth, let alone eaten it. It quietly shows up in some gluten-free flours and puffed cereals, but it almost never gets the spotlight. But here's what most people miss. A single cup of cooked amaranth delivers 160 milligrams of magnesium, almost 40% of your daily target, alongside iron, manganese, and phosphorus for cellular energy. And here's where the history gets genuinely dark and fascinating. Amaranth was a sacred staple of the Aztec Empire, so sacred, in fact, that it was sculpted into ceremonial figures using a mixture of honey and human blood for religious rituals. When Spanish colonizers arrived, they viewed this practice as such a direct threat to their religious authority that they banned amaranth cultivation almost entirely, nearly erasing a crop that had sustained an empire. Here's the practical detail, though. Amaranth does carry a fair amount of phytic acid, but thoroughly cooking the grain, particularly boiling it in water, meaningfully reduces those phytate levels and helps free up the magnesium locked inside. Today, it shows up as a warm breakfast porridge, puffed into cereal, or milled into gluten-free baking flour. This is not just a grain. This is a sacred food that an empire was once willing to die for, and it's sitting quietly in your grocery store's baking aisle. Number 10. Quinoa, mother of all grains. Quinoa has gone from obscure health food item to grain bowl staple in less than 2 decades. It's hard to find a healthy restaurant menu without it now. But here's what most people miss, beyond its complete protein and fiber. A single cooked cup gives you 118 milligrams of magnesium, about 28% of your daily target. And this is where things get interesting. Quinoa was revered by the Inca civilization as the mother of all grains, prized specifically because it could thrive in the harsh, high-altitude conditions of the Andes, where almost nothing else would grow. Here's a detail that surprises a lot of people though. The outer coating of raw quinoa contains saponins, bitter, soap-like compounds that can irritate your digestive system if they're not removed. But the fix is simple. Thoroughly rinsing and soaking quinoa before cooking strips away those saponins, and in the process, meaningfully reduces phytic acid, which may improve how much of that magnesium becomes available for your body to absorb. This is not just a grain. This is a 5,000-year-old survival crop that fed an empire through conditions that would have starved almost any other plant. 11. Black beans. The anthocyanin shield. Black beans are everywhere in American kitchens, folded into burritos, simmered into chili, served as a simple side dish. But here's what most people miss. A single cooked cup delivers 120 milligrams of magnesium, 29% of your daily need, alongside fiber and plant protein that help keep your blood sugar steady after a meal. And here's where it gets interesting. That deep, almost black color isn't just visual. It comes from anthocyanins, the same family of pigment compounds found in blueberries, and they provide real protection against free radical damage at the cellular level. The catch, as with most legumes, is phytic acid. But there's a traditional fix that's been used for generations: soaking dry black beans for at least 12 hours, then cooking them in fresh water meaningfully reduces those phytates, improving how much magnesium you're likely to absorb. This is not just a side dish. It's a small, dark-colored shield against cellular damage, quietly riding along in burritos and chili bowls across the entire country. 12. Edamame, the soybeans youth. You've probably had edamame as an appetizer at a sushi restaurant. Steamed, lightly salted, served in the pod. But here's what most people miss. These are simply soybeans harvested while they're still young and tender, before they mature and harden into the dry soybeans used for tofu or soy sauce. A single cooked cup gives you 100 milligrams of magnesium, alongside folate, vitamin K, and omega-3 fatty acids that support arterial health. And here's where it gets genuinely practical. Edamame does contain soy phytates, but boiling the shelled beans in lightly salted water reduces those anti-nutrients enough to meaningfully improve magnesium absorption, which is exactly how they're traditionally prepared anyway. This is not just an appetizer. This is the same soybean used to make tofu and soy sauce, just caught earlier in its life, at its most tender and nutritious stage. We've now covered 9 plants, and you've probably noticed something. Almost every single one of them needed some kind of preparation. Soaking, rinsing, cooking. That's not a coincidence, and it's actually the key to the next part of this story. 13. Spinach, the iron myth's cousin. Most people overlook spinach entirely, or they only think of it in terms of iron, thanks to a famous myth about Popeye that's been floating around for almost a century. But here's what most people miss. Spinach actually carries a serious amount of magnesium too. A cooked cup gives you 158 milligrams, 37% of your daily target, alongside iron, calcium, and vitamins A, C, and K. And this is where things get genuinely interesting, because I promised you earlier that we'd talk about a superfood a lot of people prepare in a way that may significantly cut into its benefit, and this is it. Raw spinach is exceptionally high in oxalic acid, in some cases containing over 2,000 milligrams per 100 grams. That oxalic acid binds to magnesium and calcium, forming compounds your digestive system can't easily break down. Eating it raw in a salad means a meaningful portion of that high magnesium number on the nutrition label may never actually make it into your body. But here's the fix. Boiling spinach and discarding the cooking water removes a large portion of those soluble oxalates, which can improve how much magnesium you actually absorb. And this connects to something else worth knowing. Spinach built a reputation over the last century as an extraordinary source of iron, largely thanks to Popeye. But later nutritional analysis showed that reputation was somewhat overstated, partly because a meaningful portion of spinach's iron is bound up by those same oxalates we're talking about right now, making it less usable than the raw numbers on a label might suggest. This is not just a leafy green. This is a useful reminder that the number on a nutrition label and the amount your body actually absorbs can be two very different things. 14. Swiss chard, the sea beet's descendant. Swiss chard tends to sit quietly in the produce aisle, often overshadowed by kale or spinach, with its bright red and yellow stalks catching more attention than the leaves themselves. But here's what most people miss. A cooked cup of Swiss chard provides 150 milligrams of magnesium, 36% of your daily need, alongside dietary nitrates that convert into nitric oxide in your body, helping improve muscle performance and lower blood pressure. And here's a detail that connects this plant to something much older. Swiss chard is actually a direct descendant of the wild sea beet, and those vivid red, yellow, and orange colors in its stalks come from pigments called betalains. Like spinach, chard carries a notable oxalate load, so the same principle applies, sautéing or lightly steaming it, especially with a splash of something acidic like lemon juice. Both softens its naturally bitter edge and improves how much magnesium your body can pull from it. This is not just a colorful vegetable. It's a living descendant of a wild coastal plant, still carrying the sea in its name and its color, centuries after it first showed up on a dinner plate. And speaking of plants, people don't think twice about. The very last entry on this list might be the most surprising one yet, because most people throw the most nutritious part of it directly in the trash. 15. Beet greens, the forgotten half. And this brings us to the very last plant on this list, one that most people throw directly into the trash without a second thought. When you buy a bunch of fresh beets, they often come with a leafy green top still attached. Most people cut it off immediately and discard it, keeping only the round red root underneath. But here's what most people miss, and this might be the single biggest surprise on this entire list. Beet greens actually contain a higher concentration of iron, potassium, and magnesium than the beetroot itself. A cooked cup gives you 110 milligrams of magnesium, 26% of your daily target, along with high levels of potassium, fiber, and vitamin K. Think about that for a moment. The part of the plant most people throw away in the trash is more nutritious than the part they paid for and kept. Like its leafy relatives, beet greens carry a meaningful oxalate load, so sautéing or steaming them, rather than eating them raw, is the better approach for improving mineral absorption. This is not just a kitchen scrap. It's quite literally the forgotten half of a vegetable most people already buy every week, sitting in the compost bin instead of on the plate every single time. So let's step back for a second and look at what we actually just walked through. 15 plants. Seeds, nuts, ancient grains, legumes, leafy greens, completely different categories, completely different textures and flavors. But every single one of them was hiding the same thing. A mineral your body needs for over 300 different processes, and one that research suggests a meaningful share of people may not be getting enough of through diet alone. But here's the biggest discovery in all of this. The one thing I really want you to walk away remembering: having a high magnesium number on a nutrition label means less than most people think. What actually matters is whether your body can unlock it. Raw spinach contains valuable nutrients, but some of that magnesium may be absorbed less efficiently because of naturally occurring oxalates. Soaked black beans, sprouted pumpkin seeds, properly rinsed quinoa, these simple preparation steps are quietly the difference between a number on a label and a mineral your body can actually use. That's the hidden lesson hiding underneath this entire list. It's never just about what you eat. It's about whether you're preparing it in a way that actually lets your body receive it. So here's my question for you, and I'd genuinely like to know the answer. Out of these 15 plants, which one surprised you the most? Was it the beet greens being more nutritious than the beet itself? The fact that an empire once sculpted amaranth into religious figures? Or something else entirely? Let me know in the comments below. If this video gave you something to think about, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more of these deep dives into the hidden science behind everyday food. There's a lot more buried in your kitchen than most people ever stop to notice. Until next time, take care of yourself and pay a little more attention to what's actually on your plate.